To Athens City Council. Tonight is Monday, March 16th, and we're beginning our council meeting with a public hearing on a local historic district. Some of you may remember that several weeks ago, council had a presentation by City Planner Paul Logue and also Mary Ann Reeves and Sari Landers, who were representing the Historic Preservation Commission, and they were making a recommendation for a designation of criteria for historic districts and landmarks. And this area is the area affected by the Union Street fire that happened in November. And the location of the address is 1416 1822 West Union Street. And we'll turn over some further discussion before we solicit audience input to our Planning and Development Chair, Chris Fall, and the Mayor may have some comments as well.
Well, I think that it's better to listen to, since it's a public hearing, to see what citizens have to say. We have talked about it in a couple of the committee meetings, and we've talked about it the first time it was introduced.
We'll open the floor up for comments from citizens. If when you come up, you could please announce your name and address and also sign in. We also have, I think, a general sign-in sheet for everybody here tonight. Are there comments from audience members? I know. Yes. Mr. Phillips.
My name's Guy Phillips. I live at 171 North Congress Street, and I have a group that owns 14.5 West Union, where just half the building physically, but that it burned down. It's totaled. The building next door, 16. I do have a signed agreement to purchase it, a lot of contingencies, and the way I figure it, it's in the developing stages right now. It's going to be like a $1.8 million project, and when all is said and done, I think we'd have a building worth about $800,000. When all's said and done, based on the income of it, probably worth about $800,000. The cost of bringing it up will be, I think, somewhere between $1.5 million and $1.8 million. So this designation, so that we can get the historic tax credits, that's one of the things that makes it possible for me to continue with this. It's all part of the deal, the paperwork that I have, the agreement. If we can get this, it's one of the steps to move forward. So I'm very excited about doing it. We are, in order to get it, in order to get the income tax credit, we have to rebuild the building and keep the front facades and do it architecturally straightforward, or keep the architectural integrity of the building, the historic aspects of it. I've got a number of buildings on Court Street, and we've always done a pretty good job keeping them historically accurate. Where the Athens News is, that building, when we first got it, 85 or something, it was certainly deteriorated. And we brought that up, and we followed the historic guidelines for the, I think it's the national parks that actually does that. And that made that possible. But this certainly, without what you guys, I believe, you're planning on doing tonight, we couldn't move forward. And so I'm very supportive of it. I'm very excited about it, and I hope it gets the full support. And I'm open for any questions. I hope I would have the answers, but it's certainly the first time I've done a project this large. But I think we can be successful with it. Any questions from you guys? Yes.
I would just ask that for folks who don't recognize numbers, address numbers, if you could just explain
Fair enough.
what we might know those buildings as.
Yes.
They're right here. Whoops.
Oh, well. God, I guess this is.
14.
We're all
I
this
guess this is 14, this is very narrow, but I actually only want on one side of it. And the bars on the dress door, and that would be, I guess, this one. I'm guessing maybe both of these. The dress door, where the fire was possibly started, in the back, outside. And then the little cigar, whatever it was, cigarette place next to that.
So your half was the sundry, the old sundry?
No, I'm on the other side, not the sundry. But it looks like one building. It is one building. It just has two different owners.
Sure.
And I will say, Gary Hunter represents the trust, and we've been communicating about it. And because it's a trust, it doesn't pay income tax. His need and desire for the income tax credit is useless to him, and he has requested that I pay for the additional cost of shoring up the front of the building and his side of the building, and I'm going to have to do that because he could tear that building down, and I'd be left with, well, I don't know what I'd be left with, but not much. So he's got me between a rock and a hard place, but I want to go forward with this.
Any other questions?
What I would like to say to you and the other owners of the affected properties is that we really appreciate being able to work with you, and that your commitment to rebuilding in that area, because that's really a prime key place in Uptown. So
Well,
we want to help, and
we need
Yep.
your help. Clearly, as I was saying
Right.
before, 1.8,
yep.
$800,000 value.
So-
And it doesn't really add up, so we need all the help we can get to do it. Otherwise, it can't be done.
Right.
But-
And that will be read for third reading tonight. So.
Great. Any other questions from? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from other members in the audience? Yes.
I didn't come prepared to say anything, but my name is Pete Colatis. My brothers and I own the Union Building and the Jackie O's Public House. The complicating part of that is the kitchen of Jackie O's Public House is in the building where the Union is. So they've shut down their kitchen, boarded it up, and we've been talking with the historic preservation people. Somebody was down today to look at it, to give us some ideas. And we're attempting to apply for the tax credits. They've got a point system, which is very complicated. Since it's under $1 million project, we get points. Because of our unemployment rate, we get points. Because we're a poverty area, and the fact that nothing like this has been done in Athens County gives us more points. The only problem we're running into a little bit is they want, and I've got to check with Paul Logue about this. When he looked at there are windows facing the building that Guy is interested in. And once everything was torn down, we found 6 fireplaces because the upstairs of the Union used to be a hotel back in the 1880s. Yeah. I'm guessing it's this here.
That
And
wall.
there's windows facing this building like this far. And that was before any of these buildings were put up. And the same way with downstairs in the bar and the upstairs, and there's windows facing over here. Now over the years, the windows have been blocked up, except there's holes where the fire department had to make holes to pour water upstairs. So when we talked to him today, he was having a little bit of a problem because they want the windows as is. And 2 of them are still glass, and the glass is there. And I doubt that the city code's going to let us have remodeling there and leave the windows as is facing a wall on the other side. I'm guessing they would have to be, but I've got to check with Paul. And they want a letter from the city saying, this is the city code and this is what we're supposed to do. So we're dealing with some of those things, and we're hoping to get it back in operation as soon as possible because the tenant is interested, and of course Jackie O's is damaged because they have no kitchen, because the kitchen is in the next building, and the roof collapsed upstairs, and the upstairs is totally empty now. It's been cleaned, and we have an architect working on some sketches to rebuild the roof and get the guys downstairs started fixing up the downstairs. So that's where we are with that, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Were they concerned, just for information's sake, were they concerned of the windows on both sides or just the side that had glass?
Well, the
That'd be
two
east.
windows that have the glass they would like to keep
Okay.
as is. The others, they don't want them boarded up. And what they did downstairs when they remodeled, they took all the paneling down and went back to the brick. And what they did is put a board in there, so you can still see where the window used to be, but it's boarded up, it's protected. Now, that we may have to put more than just a board in there.
A mirror, I think I've seen that in some historic buildings. So
Yeah.
it's glass, but it's, just to show that there was something
But there's
there.
something in the
Architecturally.
protection in the back of that. So I'm not sure exactly what the city code says, but
Probably we'd have to check with Paul Oak and John Paskey. And I say that because there's probably fire rating requirements that,
Oh, yeah.
just a pane of glass. would
well,
not
we
do.
told him that, and that's where a conflict, he said, I don't want to quote him, but he said, I'm not really concerned about the city code. I'm only interested in the historical value of this. So that's where it's conflicting a little bit, and we're trying to figure out how to work around all of this.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. And like I said, we're proceeding, and I'm hoping we can get started within the next month or so. And then what may affect us is the demolition of the other buildings as well. So we're trying to work our way through this and work with the other building owners and see what's going to happen there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from members in the audience? Or the mayor?
I would only ask if anybody who hasn't signed in the sign-in sheet for the public hearing would do so.
Okay. Mr. Phillips?
Just to publicly state, Pete, if there's anything that you need from us, I think we're probably sharing an architect, I believe. You can count on us to be helpful on that if it's something we need to do. So.
Hearing no other comments or seeing no other people interested in speaking on this right now, we'll consider the hearing closed. Okay. Thank you. We'll now proceed with the regular session of council, and by establishing the quorum, we have all council members present tonight. And the next item of business is to dispose of the minutes. And we have minutes from the regular session on January 20th and February 2nd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion's carried. The next item is communications, and I do have 4 items for tonight. One of them is just to mention, this is the first time I think we're back in full complement. The mayor was away for a while, students were away on spring break, and we're now here, and wanted to officially and formally recognize our new law director, Lisa Eliason, who was sworn in, and I think has been with us one other evening, but it was on an evening when some of us weren't here. And just to say that we're glad you're here, and also to make note that Law Director Eliason is the first female law director for the city of Athens. So an historic moment, too. second item, we do have communication from Ohio University that there is going to be a well installed near Convocation Center parking area, and just wanted to alert people to that so that they wouldn't be alarmed. And this is actually for some groundwater monitoring device. So it will be there. It's for a particular class. There'll be a geoprobe inserted, and this is for a class taught by Dr. Lee at Ohio University. So just to make you aware of that. Council members are also in receipt of communication from the Department of Commerce. This concerns the Chipotle liquor license application. And we have been notified that the legislative objection that the city filed with the Liquor Control Board has been overruled, and the processing of the application will continue. And then the fourth item is, I think, just a friendly reminder, as much for myself as for anybody else, about procedures. So when we have our motions tonight for the ordinances and consideration of them, typical procedure is to, for persons who want to speak, council members, mayor, I think there's some other interested parties tonight. We'll have the motion, the second, and then we'll entertain comments, but it'll be as we recognize, as you're recognized by myself. And so we don't have a conversation, but a little bit more kind of formal process on that. And we have reports from other elected officials. The mayor.
Nothing I could think of. You covered quite a bit already.
Okay. I have one thing to report.
Okay.
Under communications, we received notice from the League of American Bicyclists that they did receive our bicycle-friendly community application. And I want to formally thank Member Cochran for her willingness to sit on that with that group and put that application together and get it sent out. We really appreciate that because those are time-consuming. So we're basically in the position now of awaiting that group's decision about whether we will become a bicycle-friendly community.
Great, thank you. And Law Director Eliason, any reports?
Nothing.
Okay. We'll proceed with readings of the ordinances. The first ones will be readings for ordinances for third reading. And the first one is 01-15, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 2 replacement buses for the Athens transit system, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance 01-15.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And we've discussed this at length. These are for 2 of our replacement buses. These will be zero-entry buses. And that's taking a little bit longer in the process due to the fact that I learned from Michael Lockman that it's new in the whole system of where the state of Ohio purchases their buses. And it's taking a little bit longer. But we decided to go with that additional little bit of income and purchase the zero-entry buses, which means you do not have the lifts for wheelchairs. Many who have grown up in larger urban areas have seen zero-entry buses. And so we're going to try that here in Athens.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, Mayor Wow.
they're basically low riding buses, so to speak, with the idea that you can put a ramp down rather than a lift. So the mechanics are easier, they're less weight, and it'll hold up better. I was at the Disabilities Awareness Festival last Wednesday, and they had some pictures, a nice brochure of it, some of the types of buses out there. Again, the cost is a little bit more, but the expectation is they'll hold up longer and better as a result, because less moving parts.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving ordinance 01-15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 08-15 is an ordinance amending the 2014 appropriation ordinance introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance 08-15. Second. Thank you. This ordinance, again, we've discussed at length, but basically it's appropriating $11,000. It'll go towards the traffic control box wraps. This is part of the Essence of Athens plan. The remaining $15,000 will be to have an RFP go out where artists can apply to put art on our primary clarifiers, the new wastewater treatment plant. There's 2 large panels that face the bike path. And again, all this is coming out of the Athens Enhancement Fund line.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance A15. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 1215 is an ordinance creating a local historic district to include certain buildings on West Union Street, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 1215.
Second.
As we heard earlier this evening, this is a popular project so that we can help redevelop the area that was affected by the West Union fire.
Okay. All those in favor of approving ordinance 1215 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 1415, an ordinance affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the Board of Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office for the period from July 1, 2014 through December 31st, 2014, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we accept ordinance 1415.
Second.
This is the third reading. This is actually part of a 2-part ordinances. This is just affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement that's already occurred. So through the period of July 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014. So.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Weil.
Part of the reason why this occurs like this is that they're on a fiscal calendar. We budget for the year, the regular calendar year. So about halfway through the year, sometimes it falls through the cracks to re-up this dollar amount. Again, if you look at the actual ordinance, I think it's $133,000. In the past, I've sat here for many, and so about 63 per half year. That will fluctuate from year to year. It has gone up over time. It's really to pay our portion of the Public Defender's Office for those who can't afford a lawyer, in conjunction with the county commissioners. I mention this because in the past, usually it evolved into a long discussion on committee of whether it was worth this to do this or not. Mostly because it's like, can we hire just one lawyer to do it all? But it's a whole range of cases, many cases, and it's worth doing this in conjunction with the county commissioners. And again, I apologize for missing the last one, but as I say, we budget at one part at a time, and then we actually start the contract in another 6 months later. So sometimes it gets out of sync.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 1415. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 1515, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an addendum agreement with the Board of Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office for the period from January 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2015, and declaring an emergency, and introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we accept ordinance 1550.
Second.
And as per the mayor's explanation about the overlaps of calendars between us and the county, again, we have a gap here that's coming up, so we have to fill it. So.
Okay, thank you. A motion and a second we have for ordinance 1515. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 1615 is an ordinance authorizing an adjustment to the non-union pay scale introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
I'll speak to it, Madam President. This ordinance is an attempt.
Jeff, Councilmember Reisner, you want to move first?
I'm
We'll have
sorry.
move in second, and then we'll have comments.
Thank you. I move that we accept ordinance 1615.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on procedure. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Had to start at the beginning. This ordinance is an attempt to bring some equity to a large group of non-union employees of the city, to bring their pay scale up to that of the employees of the auditor's office who received a pay raise back in December 2014. Their pay raise was 3% and 4% for the 4 employees that work in the auditor's office. This is an attempt to at least give equity to the other remaining employees who are in the non-union pay scale. It will not address many other issues that non-union employees may have with compensation with the city. It will not address other issues that may or may not have anything to do with pay, but just simply assignments and so on. This is just simply a 1% pay raise. There is no retroactivity involved in this. This does not go back to January. It starts when it's accepted, signed by the mayor. I think they deserve it, and I think we are morally obligated to pass this. So.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have other comments from other council members? Okay. Any other comments? I know that we have former council member Ed Baum is with us tonight and wants to make some comments about this.
Good evening, members of council, Mr. Mayor. I'm Edward Baum, 20 Sunnyside Drive, Athens, Ohio. For 50 years, I taught courses in public administration and political science, the last 25 of which were courses in public personnel administration. Two of the most difficult things in personnel administration are performance evaluation and compensation. And I was interested in Mr. Reisner's comment that this does not address all of the problems of the system. One should not address a system piecemeal. It should be addressed as a whole. What do you want a system to do? You want it to recognize the levels of skill, effort, and performance put forth by the city employees. You want to ensure equity among the various employees in the various levels. And you want to stay competitive with appropriate labor markets for various other municipalities in the private sector. How do you know when a system is not working well? Well, obviously it's not working well because you're now having an ordinance which deals with one small part of the total system. You know it's not working well when a public official grants raises because, quote, people are working hard or for other reasons. You know it's not working well when you discover you have several employees, and I think it's 7 or 8, who are being paid more than the topped out point on their pay bands. And what I would encourage you to do is, I understand the city is now going through a job analysis where they're looking at the various jobs, and that I would encourage you to postpone this to allow that work to continue. If you have problems with the system, you don't come in and say, well, because the auditor gave raises, we should give raises. If nothing else, I would encourage you to table this motion indefinitely, which will allow the mayor and the personnel director to do their work and to come back before you with a system which is complete, sound, and can be accepted by the citizens of Athens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other comments?
The mayor.
Yes, Mayor Wah.
We are working on JQ's job analysis questionnaires. We are initiating, of course, a salary survey, which we do with getting information of Ohio Municipal League. So we're working on 2 aspects of that. There's always been, for anybody who's watched how council runs most of the time, many times the testing ground for many of our salary issues falls onto the non-union. I think that many times they're saying they're the test case for what we want to take away or add, which does not always work well. Again, we're in process of this. I don't think we can speed it up any more than we have. Not to make excuses why some of this stuff did not occur early, is that we've had transitions in our human resource director over time. We had Beverly Henderson, Claudia Reagan, who left, and now we have a new one. So there's been transition pain, so to speak. And again, they just call it equity is one thing, but again, the conversation we initiated this with was the morale of the employees in general. So that's why I'm advocating for it to be done. In terms of compensation and try equalizing with the local environment within the city and Athens County, you know as well as I do, there's a slight skewer having the big green university there that has a higher pay scale in general than what we can even contemplate. And I know in the past we've been compared with them, and that's always a difficult comparison. There are cities that are comparable to us that we're analyzing. There are positions that are same and different, so we're working on it, and this is a work in progress. And I will be the first to admit, as a mayor and as a public person, and both in the university standing, having worked there for many years, and as a mayor for the past 7, I've never really looked at salary as my motivation. So therefore, I'm almost colorblind when it comes to salaries and what is just. And I say that because I've gone through many labor negotiations where, unfortunately, the first thing it says, I really don't care about the salary, which is not a negotiating point when you start for a pay scale or a salary. So therefore, part of it is myopia of this particular issue. But again, there's been a lot of conditions that have occurred on this.
Okay. Thank you for the comments. Okay, we have a motion, and yes.
I do have a
Kopka.
comment.
Yes.
As I've stated before, I feel uncomfortable with this ordinance because I do feel like we've rushed forward with this response. And as Mr. Baum very coherently put, it's like putting on a Band-Aid on a bigger issue and, sticking your finger in the dike or whatever metaphor you want to use. We're not solving any problems with this. We're just delaying, and we're trying to say, okay, here's an additional 1%. I appreciate the sentiment of trying to bring equity, but I don't believe that a 1% across the board raise brings equity when the lowest paid folks are, getting much less of a raise than the highest paid folks. So again, I don't believe this is the solution. Maybe a small part of a solution, but certainly I appreciate Mr. Baum's comments on this issue tonight.
Mayor Weil.
We can only go so fast. To stretch a metaphor, if you're hemorrhaging, do you wait for the right Band-Aid, or do you just try stopping the flow of blood? From my point of view, we're trying to keep the morale going. I would hope not that we don't have a full unionization of our workforce, and basically one being motivated by dissatisfaction with what's going on. You're right, it is a Band-Aid, but the question is, if you want to give me more staff at the human resource level to actually expedite this process, that would be another place to spend money too.
Okay. Having heard the comments, we will have the vote now. We have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. And any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. The next ordinance for third reading is Ordinance 1715, an ordinance amending Ordinance 9914, establishing fees as required by the Athens City Code, and this is introduced by all council members. And thank you, Councilmember Fall.
I move that we pass 1715.
Second.
This is basically not nearly as exciting as the title makes it out to be. This is basically some housekeeping and cleaning up the code with removing some language about fees that we actually no longer charge. So,
We have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 1915. This is an ordinance accepting the Ohio Department of Transportation's pre-qualified consultant list for Ohio Department of Transportation, or ODOT, funded projects, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt 1915.
Second.
This is an ordinance so that we will be in ODOT's pre-qualified consultant list, and you have to sign up to do that, and that has to be in an ordinance format. So this is what we're requesting.
Thank you. We have the motion and second for approval of 19-15. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now have ordinances for first reading. And ordinance number 2415 is an ordinance authorizing design and preliminary engineering of the South Side Bridges projects, project number 290, and it's introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to amend 2415.
Second.
The reason for asking for the amendment is we need to move forward with this, and we'd like to add for an emergency clause.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to amend this ordinance to add the words emergency clause so that we can move forward in a timely fashion. All those in favor of approving the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, the amendment is approved. And it's been now read for the first time.
It's
Do you
fine.
want- Okay,
No,
it's
it's
fine
fine.
for the first time. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to ordinance 2515. It's an ordinance authorizing participation in the Ohio Department of Transportation's Cooperative Purchasing Program, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt 2615. Well, I'm sorry, I move to suspend 2615. 2515.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for ordinance 2515. The purpose being,
The reason for
reason.
suspension is that we would like to move into the cooperative purchasing program for salt. If you are not within this purchasing program, the cooperative, you end up paying much more for salt. So we all know how important salt is to the community for our roads. So we want to be part of that cooperative.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Yes, Councilmember Patterson.
Just for clarification, is there a time urgency issue with this particular?
The sooner we're in the cooperative, the better in terms of purchasing power.
Do you have a
I
comment?
believe the gate's closing on this. It was a meeting about a week ago, I believe, that
Right.
they kind of sprung it on us and said, do you want to be in or out? And there's a deadline on it.
need
I
to
think
sign
Might
the
actually be the
agreement.
end of the month, I think.
Right, we need to sign the
Yeah.
agreement, yeah.
by the end of the month.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to consider this ordinance under suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, the rules have now been suspended.
So now I request we move to adopt 2515.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 2515. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion's carried. Ordinance 2615 is an ordinance levying special assessments for sidewalk improvements associated with the West Union Street infrastructure project and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. This ordinance is the final ordinance to finish off the West Union Street project. And it is for the billing purposes to bill the owners for their assessments on the sidewalk improvements.
Thank you. Ordinance 2715 is an ordinance amending the 2015 appropriation ordinance, and it's introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This is one of those housekeeping chores that has to be done. Apparently there was a clerical error, shall we say, with the 2015 budget we have to address. So essentially 2015 appropriation ordinance 1/2014 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $100 to General Fund 101-120 TC 600 to process refunds, $35,000 to CDBG Fund 248 TC 300 to cover general administration and the Fair Housing Program for the Depot Lift Station Project number 286, Grant AF 142AE-1, and $146,000 to Internal Fund 865 TC 100 and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Care to speak to it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, okay, I think the discussion at the committee was the $100 is because the application fee for various jobs. I think we had two that came in past the deadline, had to refund that. The 35 is anticipation of some of the charges. This is essentially for the lift station project. We have HABCAP doing some of the administration on that in terms of the engineering, or rather the granting. It was a critical infrastructure grant that we pursued, and they're covering the administration, but it also includes the fair housing component. The last one is all my glory on that point. When I was putting in the appropriation TC 100s for the internal services, I was just looking at the non-union side and not the union side. So I pulled the number off the wrong column. So it's running about, the TC 100 is supposed to be about 300,000, whereas I only put about 150 in or change. So we need to do this as quickly as possible so they get paid.
So we should suspend the rules to pass this immediately to correct the error.
Yes.
So first of all, Madam President, I move that we suspend the rules.
I think you did already. Did you? No.
No, we didn't.
So we have a motion now and a second to consider suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended.
Madam President, I move that we accept 2715.
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second, and we've had an explanation of the different charges, or the different amounts in the appropriation ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Ordinance 2815 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 12214, the fringe benefit package for non-union employees, and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
This we discussed last week in our special session in committee. I'm introducing this legislation to try to correct some problems I believe exists within the city code about the powers of council to give raises, compensation, or not. Two things came up in our recent controversy starting in January. Was that heads of departments of other elected offices have the right to grant raises to their employees without what I would consider proper consent of council? And do they have the power to make those compensations retroactive to a certain date? I'm introducing this legislation that we discussed in committee last week to reassert the authority of council. If, as in some person's opinion, that council has lost the power to control the budget, this is an attempt to correct that. If council already has that power but hasn't been using it properly, perhaps this will reaffirm it. Shall I go through the entire, want me to read it? Or?
It might be helpful if you just summarize the two exceptions in parts B and C. So in other words, this brings back the compensation and salaries approval to the council with the exception of two items.
Okay. Section A, all non-bargaining unit employees with the exception of the service safety director are hired at pay. Now what gets struck out is grades, now becomes bands, 1 through 8 as reviewed and approved separately by City Council. B, non-bargaining unit employees, including permanent part-time and three-quarter time, that's new, time employees hired into pay strikeout grades to bands 1 through 5 will start at the minimum pay rate in the designated pay range for their position. Employees strikeout may receive pay increases at the first of each year as established by council ordinance. That's new. Striking out, however, the first occurrence becomes upon successful completion of a 6-month probationary period at a 2% increase may be granted at the discretion of the elected official. So those are our exceptions to that. I believe this is necessary. I've stated that to me the big issue is not pay raises or compensation for employees, as important as that is. To me, it's more of a constitutional question of, does the legislative body of the city of Athens have the power to regulate the budget, or has it abrogated its authority to elected officials? I believe the way the city was constructed, city council had the first and final say with the budget. Various offices would bring forth their budgets for the year, council would then approve them. Apparently, what's happened in the past year has shown that, well, that's has not necessarily been the case. I want to bring that authority back to council. That's why I'm advocating this ordinance.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. And so that ordinance has now been read for the first time. We'll now move on to announcements and other business. Council members are in receipt of the February 2015 auditor's financial reports. So I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second for approval of the auditors?
We didn't get.
I didn't see it.
And
Financials
actually,
you should have gotten from the auditor's office. Debbie, did you get them for February?
I emailed them to the council maybe
Okay.
2 weeks ago.
Okay, I missed it.
okay, some of the council members, some of us have received them, so we'll make sure that council members Fall and Pappy get their copies. Okay. So we have a motion and second to accept the auditor's financial reports for February. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. One item, particular item that I have is regarding an update on the cost allocation plan. And in 2013, the state audit management letter recommended that council formally adopt the city's cost allocation plan. And as my understanding at this point, we've asked for an update, and we do understand that the auditor's office is working on this plan for presentation to council. So just to make you aware of the fact that we will be seeing that shortly. And I believe we have an update from Council Member Cochran on the Tree Commission.
Yes, this is an appointment from the mayor for council's approval for an alternate for the Shade Tree Commission. And that alternate will be Nancy Walker, who is a resident of my neighborhood on the Far East Side, and an active dog walker and conservationist. And I think she'll make a great contribution to the Shade Tree Commission. She's already attending Shade Tree Commission Academy in Belpre with Ann Bonner currently, and we look forward to her joining us.
Okay, Mayor Wild.
And again, we have a good Shade Tree Commission. They're very dedicated, they're knowledgeable, they're flexible in terms of what needs to be, knowing what species need to go in. I've always been impressed with their abilities. We will have, I believe, an Arbor Day celebration coming up. I think the location is going to end up on the ridges, last I heard. And in general, for all the boards and commissions that citizens serve on, I'd like to thank them. And again, because it's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love for many of them.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Patterson.
I'd like to announce that the Commission on Disabilities has announced their annual meeting date for Challenge by Choice Disability Speaks, which is the evening event, which is going to be April 16th at 6 p.m., 6 to 8 p.m. in the community center. We've also announced our keynote speaker for this year, who's going to be Dr. J.W. Smith from the College of Communications. And I can't tell you who, but we've also decided as to who's going to become the first recipient of the Athena Award, which is a service award here in the city of Athens. So you'll have to come and show up to the event to find out who that person is.
And I'm going to very briefly return to one other council item, our previous tree commission, and entertain a motion for approval on that.
I move to approve Nancy Walker as an alternate on the Athens Shade Tree Commission.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval of Nancy Walker to the Tree Commission, Shade Tree Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. The motion's carried. Nancy's been appointed. We thank you. And it's okay. All right, we have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items that were not on the agenda. But before I move to that, I'm going to see if there are any other announcements. And do we have any other need for, will we have a need for committee meetings?
Madam President?
Yes.
I would just add what the mayor commented about the Arbor Day celebration, which will actually be Tree City USA Awards ceremony to be held at the Ridges on April 29th. All council members will be invited, as well as other interested folks. Invitations will be going out shortly from Ann Bonner and/or Ron Lucas, Deputy Service Safety Director. So look for those in your inboxes, and we hope to see you there for a fun tour of the Ridges, as well as a celebration of all the good tree work going on.
Okay, thank you. And before we move on to the opportunity for citizens, I do want to find out if there'll be other committee meetings that will be meeting next week. And I see Planning and Development from Councilmember Fall.
Probably
Transportation from Councilmember Pappy.
Finance personnel.
Finance and Personnel from Councilmember Reisner. Okay.
Let's make it a full house.
Okay.
City
All right.
and city service.
Service and Safety Service from Councilmember Patterson. Okay. Thank you. And now,
just one question. I wanted to find out some information about Richland Avenue.
Richland Avenue?
Yes.
They're mobilizing now. You can tell by all the orange cones and all the work that's going on. It started the first week of March. What do you want to know? Exactly what's going on? Or
I just want our viewers to realize that it definitely is under construction, that things are rolling, the potholes are being addressed, and
yes,
it's moving.
most of it, we hope to put that information on our city website regularly as it goes on. I know Jessica Dine, the project manager, is in constant conversations with many of the businesses on that street. So if you can't go to the website and check it out, and again, I want to see updates on that. So we've had that discussion at staff at one point.
yes, Councilmember Patterson.
I'd like to not reiterate your question, but to state, as I frequently traverse up and down Richland Avenue, please, everyone, be careful, because there is large, heavy equipment that's operating up and down Richland Avenue. So take your time and be slow. As a matter of fact, just this evening going along, I purposely stopped to make sure that one of the pieces of equipment, that I wasn't in that person's way, because I would have lost. So.
Okay.
Well, and if you don't really have business at that and you're just using it as a thoroughfare to get to the next side, get on the highway, take a left off of Mulligan and go and get on the highway. That would help safety for everyone. If you have business, of course, you need to go there, but if you don't.
That said, all businesses are open on Richland Avenue as well, so keep that in mind, that the businesses are operating as usual.
Now we will have the opportunity for citizens to speak for items that were not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone interested in speaking? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Entertainment.
Okay. Do we have a second for adjournment? We'll adjourn the council meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:55.